Welcome to the Wingmen Show. We're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots. Rumble. Welcome to the Wingmen Show. My name is Commander Drew Brown. My wingman, my man, my number one guy, the guy who watches my six, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother Paul?
Just you. Good to see you today on this fine day. We're going to have a good show.
Yeah, we're going to have a great show. Hey, guess what? I saw something in Facebook. You know, Meta, I guess Meta is the company that owns them. So I think Facebook, I don't do Facebook. So whenever somebody contacts me, I'll get on it. So anyway, I saw this great deal for a hotel, Cambria Hotel in New Orleans. And we go to New Orleans all the time, Paul, because of my granddaughter, my daughter, my first wife, everybody's down there. So anyway, I call Katrina and tell her, this Cambria Hotel is a beautiful boutique hotel in the downtown warehouse district. And they're giving you 4 nights, 5 days for $199 with a $100 dining certificate, like the greatest thing in the world, like the greatest deal in the world. So I fill it all out. But right before I hit buy, I asked Katrina, do you think this is too good to be true? She said, absolutely. We called the Cambria. Before we could get 2 words out, they say, yes, it's a scam. Don't do it. You'll lose your money. Dr. Paul, how can I look at something on Facebook owned by Meta that was a beautiful ad? It was a real ad and get scammed. And this is the problem. If I get scammed, and I'm pretty smart, if I get scammed, imagine how many people are getting scammed every day and scamming the elderly. God, Paul, what do we do about this?
Well, it's tough for now because you've heard the term deep fakes. There is such a technology that's available to just about everyone, where you can disguise yourself as almost everything. Yeah, you saw it on Facebook, you saw it on Meta, but these guys can inflict damage to everyone. They can go on any kind of platform, and it's really, really tough to see. I get them all the time. And sometimes the only thing that you'll see that really is a tip-off is there'll be like a strange email address with a bunch of characters at the end. It's like, oh, what is that? You know, something crazy, obvious. But the rest of it is just fine. It's perfect. It's great graphic design. Everything is good. And sometimes you get these warnings. I've seen from the IRS sometimes will say, hey, if you see any kind of IRS stuff, this is not from us or the Department of Veteran Affairs or usually some government agency. There's, yes, they'll imitate the feds. It's counterfeiting. It's a different kind of counterfeiting, online counterfeiting.
But you know, Paul, these scams are getting so good. They got me already. Remember, we did it on our very first shows when they got me for that puppy because they tugged at my heart. They tugged at my heart, and it was a beautiful puppy. Anyway, I lost. The second time, Social Security called me. It actually said Social Security on my caller ID. How can they do that? Well, they can do that too. I went down, Social Security said a scam. So let's give some advice here. My advice is what I heard so many years ago. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And that happens all the time.
That's right. That's right.
What's your advice?
And they prey on the elderly because they don't know as much, they're not sophisticated, and they're easier targets. than someone that's 22 years old, 25 years old. You're just easier targets. So I think the thought is if they can, put it out 1,000 times and they get two people to take it, they made their money.
That's right. Well, I do want to tell you one other thing. We talk about weather change all the time, and I'm just saying this quick. Dr. Paul, they got 24 inches in Miami of rain in 6 hours. I want you to hear that again. They got 2 feet of rain in 6 hours. And I bet you have never seen rain like that in your life.
I think that was just the other day. And I think even a hurricane doesn't generate that much rain.
No, it's crazy. The weather's really changing.
And it covered from an area from South Florida all the way up to Jacksonville.
That's right.
Which is outside of Georgia.
Well, let me start the show off with a great quote from Frederick Douglass. And it says, if there's no struggle, there is no progress. Once again, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. And I find that to be true. The only thing I've ever gotten in my life is from hard work and a little struggle. And anything that comes easy, like scamming, anything that comes easy is not worth having. Anything too good to be true is not worth having. Well, welcome to the Wingmen Show. First of all, those badass jets back there, I got a Virgin Galactic made by Rolls-Royce and Virgin Air. And it's just it's a futuristic plane, but the Rolls-Royce engines we flew on. So that's my little badass plane. What do you got back there?
It's like a couple of F-18s in the background, and it's being refueled by another F-18. I guess on cool. The to your left, my right, to your left, you see this basket, and that's how they do it. It's called a Drogue, a hose and a Drogue. The Drogue sits at the end of the hose, and the refueling receptacle of the airplane getting the gas plugs into it, or they call it maybe a male-female connection. You'll hear that sometimes. And it's I think it's a pretty picture.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture. And you and I know a lot about that Drogue because we gave gas and we got gas all the time in the Navy.
Right.
So that Drogue was very familiar to me. And all you frequent flyers out there, thank you so much for listening to us. Please subscribe to us on YouTube or check us out on Instagram. But we really appreciate that. And we have a flow line, y'all. And TheWingmenShow.com, that's wingmenshow.com. You can write us, ask us a question. You got a problem? Put it on the flow line. We'll answer it. We won't tell your name, but we'll answer it. So thank you so much, all of our frequent flyers. We are sponsored by Magic Mind, something that Dr. Paul and I take all the time. We take it in the morning. It's got 12 good natural ingredients. And for me, it takes away my stress, but what I really like is the productivity. The productivity is the part I like. What do you like about it, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, it gets me going, and I find myself completing tasks that I otherwise wouldn't. I don't know why. It's done. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I assume that has a lot to do with it.
It sure does. And if anybody wants some Magic Mind, just go to magicmind.co. That's magicmind.co and put in the code Wingmen for 40% off. Put in the code Wingmen, and that's with an E, Wingmen, for 40% off. All right. What's the hottest places to go this summer? This summer, the top hottest places. Can you guess any? Because you know what? You and I have been to all of these.
Let's see.
Name one. Just give me a guess.
About London or Paris?
God dang you, Paul. That's why you're a doctor. London's number one. Cancun, Paris, Orlando, and Rome are the top spots. But I did read something earlier. If you want to save some money, those are not the spots to go to. Those are the spots to avoid and find some that are not so hot, that people are not going to so much. And I read another thing. Try not to stay over on Saturdays. They charge you the most in hotels. But the hot spots, we've been to all of them. I love London, and they do have the best fish and fries. Fish and chips.
Yeah, fish and chips
in the world. I found the place. When I went back to London, I brought it back there.
That's
what do you think about these top places?
That's good. Well, you fish and chips, that used to be one of my favorite. I haven't had that in a long time. But you know where I had my best fish and chips, I'll be honest, it wasn't in London. Those were very, very good. Particularly a couple of bars. They're really, really good. I had better ones in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of times. I still remember it. The last time was like 1987 in this little place by a furniture store. Fantastic.
Well, when I went back to London, it was right over the London Bridge, actually. I looked, and Katrina started thinking, oh, maybe you really don't know where it is. The place I went to that I remembered was closed. And do you notice this, Dr. Paul? No matter what you've eaten or seen before, when you see it again, it just ain't that good no more. It's not as good as what I should say. The memory is always better than the reality.
Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes, places change. They change ownership. They change ingredients. It's like, wait, this is a little bit different. I found that just from the pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, some of the items we purchased, they taste a little bit different. They stopped putting some ingredients in, cutting back. I can tell.
Well, our show, Dr. Paul, is about good news. Our show is about people feeling good and not always doing bad. Let me read a couple of things, how good things are really happening. I'm going to read this, and I think you'll understand. Here's a young girl, graduates from U.S. high school with a 6.9 GPA, wins Best Graduating Student Award, a Black girl. How about a 20-year-old Nigerian lady who wins a global award for being able to speak 11 foreign languages? Very big achievement. And we're going to talk about a guy who actually, I think he spoke 24 or something like that. Anyway, how about a 26-year-old lady wins $250,000 engineering award and becomes the first woman ever to win that prize? 11-year-old boy graduates from the university as a physicist, completes a 3-year course in 1 year. 18-year-old homeless girl bags a degree in law from Georgetown University, getting the Best Student Award. What do you think about those, Doc? You got some?
I got some. I got six. I got six here. More good news. Again, young people. This is a 14-year-old boy wins $1.4 million scholarships to U.S. universities to become a computer scientist. Teen from Florida earns $4 million in scholarships accepted to 27 universities. Student award of $1.7 million in scholarships accepted to 49 colleges. 17-year-old from Chicago, accepted to more than 30 colleges, receives over $1 million in aid. Young lady in Atlanta gains admission to several U.S. universities, wins $2.2 million in scholarships. And the last thing, our good friend, Kyrie Irving, basketball player for the Dallas Mavericks, donates $22,000 to Howard University student who just asked him for a little financial help.
Isn't that something? And you know how we found all this, everybody? I went and saw an article about a 17-year-old girl from Atlanta here who won a $4 million scholarship to Harvard. So I started digging into it. And as soon as I clicked on it, here are all these other scholarships given away. What I'm saying is everything is just not bad. We have good stuff here. There are good students. And I want to tell somebody something. These Black universities are filling up. These big universities are all full. So there are a lot of people who are making it. Good people don't get any noise because, they say the squeaky wheel is the one that gets all the attention. Well, guess what? Good people get all the money and have all the good lives. And there's some other good news. Lake Tahoe is the clearest it's ever been in 40 years. And that, I told you about how bad the weather is, and we always hear about the so much rain, this, that. Well, how about Lake Tahoe's clearing up? Have you been there, Dr. Paul? I think you have.
Yeah, a number of times. Not too far outside of Vegas. In fact, I'm trying to think. The last time I was in Lake Tahoe was a few years ago. Actually, there was some forest fires going on, and it was coming from California. It was kind of smoky. It was still very, very, very pleasant, and really, really nice. Nice place. Really
How about
nice.
this one, Dr. Paul? There's going to be a vaccine in 2030, they say, for cancer and for heart disease. And Dr. Paul, as this science keeps going, and they say the reason that these vaccines are going to start to come is because of COVID. I guess they worked so hard on vaccines during that COVID epidemic that now they've found a way to make vaccines quicker. Anyway, there soon will be a vaccine for cancer, for heart disease, and I'm sure for some other ailments. Now, you can do what Dr. Paul and I do and eat well and exercise and try to avoid these problems. But how about that? A vaccine for cancer and heart disease, Dr. Paul?
Well, that would be great. And I assume that that would be the vaccine, before you get it rather than after. I've heard it's been in development for a long time. I wonder if it would be for all forms of cancer or a certain number. If you could just get one, it's a major improvement. Because we all know people who've been afflicted with cancer. In fact, I ran into a mutual friend yesterday that was talking about a family issue they're dealing with. It was cancer related just yesterday afternoon. So it's there in society. And a lot of things are affecting younger people. Not to go off topic too much, but if you notice the number of celebrities dying, I'd say young, passing away these days in the last few years. Health is important. Take the vaccines. That's good. Hopefully that'll help you. But just like working out is great, but there's no workout that's going to overcome a bad diet. So be mindful of what you put in your mouth, what you chew, what you eat. Vaccines, it's good, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we can do everything we want. It's like when they came out with cars with anti-lock brakes. A lot of folks didn't really have much of a physics background or knowing how things work, thought anti-lock, anti-skid is the same, and that I can do anything, apply the brakes, and come to immediate stop. That's not the way it works. Don't want to get into a long discussion about that. So it's good to hear these nice things coming, but you need to understand how they really work and what your responsibilities are, either if you're driving a car or putting something in your mouth. Know what's going on. Take care of yourself.
That's a perfect segue to this. You know what time it is? It's time for a Wingmen PSA from the 11 Facts in Life. Fact number 6. The 8 deadly sins. Gluttony. Eat right and exercise. Use moderation and common sense when putting things in your body. Gluttony. What do you think about that, Doc?
Yeah, that's I think one time my father accused me of gluttony. I think I had something over. I think that's the first time I heard the word. I had some plate of something overflowing with stuff it shouldn't have been overflowing with, and I spilled some of it. And he said, if you weren't such a glutton, you wouldn't have that problem. Okay, it's true. That was a long time ago. I think I was probably like 7. But
yeah, and you can be gluttonous in more than just food.
Right.
Did you know that? You can be gluttonous in anything. And that's what happens. Sometimes we go.
It's good, sometimes when you're even when you're dogged out or insulted or whatever, I'd look up the word, see what it means. I learned something. So
whenever you come across a word that you don't understand, you should go right to the dictionary. And when anybody talks to you and says a word you don't understand, either you ask them what it is or you stop the conversation till you find out what it is.
Yeah. And the good thing now
a lot of people don't ask what it is because it makes them look stupid. The stupid part is you're listening to something that you don't know what they're talking about. Or you're reading that you have no idea what you're reading about.
Yeah, and oftentimes you'll hear a word and you think you know the meaning of it, but you really don't. It might be the opposite. Good thing you have now if you got these magic phones. I have a dictionary app on my phone. Every once in a while, thesaurus. What does that mean? I should know that. Yeah, it means that. No, I'm way off. It's good to look at those things since we don't have paper in front of us all the time. So yeah, take a look at that. When you're in line, you got nothing to do, pick up a word of the day, word of the week or something like that. Just some random word. Learn a new word.
That's good advice, Dr. Paul. Here's a question for you. From a toddler to a teenager, how many different sizes does a young person have in a shoe, do you think, between toddler and teenage? How many times does his shoe size change?
Okay, well, I'm just reflecting back on my life. I didn't get that many different pairs of shoes. I'm going to say toddler. Let's say 4, or 5? Maybe?
15. 15 times your size changed. Let me tell you this little story. My very good friend, Mike Prock in Michigan, and I've known him since we met at a dice table at the Mirage. We broke that table too. Anyway, that's a long, long time ago. My great friend, Mikey, was an ASICS shoes salesman. And that means he went all over his territory selling shoes. So the kind of shoes that they give shoe salesmen are size 9. Those are the shoes that they show everybody, always size 9. He had a garage full of size 9 sneakers. And he used to always tell me, this is before he's even married, when I have a kid, I can't wait till he grows up and becomes a size 9. Well, Mikey had a kid. The kid became a size 9, Dr. Paul, for 7 months. He was only a 9 for 7 months. So all those shoes were good for 7 months. And then he went to 9.5 or 10. But children grow that fast. So the reason I'm telling you all this, what if I told you there was a guy, and you read this, a guy that has a new shoe that can expand. You can buy a shoe now, and it will expand with your child's foot. So you don't have to keep buying different shoes. Now, for sneakers heads, that's not gonna work. People buy $3,000-$4,000 shoes and don't wear them. But people who can afford them, how about this idea of an expanding shoe, Dr. Paul?
That's kind of brilliant. I'm trying to visualize how you do that from a toddler to a teenager. You know, I mean, from an infant to Shaq. I mean, would it just go that big? That's amazing.
Amazing, isn't it?
You'll probably make a lot of money with that too. Because if you had a brand, you said you could have a customers for life.
Nike, that's what I was just going to say. Nikes for life.
Nikes for life.
From the crib from the cradle to the grave.
Literally. That would work.
I know. That would
be kind of morose. Show somebody in a casket with them on too, to say it would work. I could see.
That's right. Look, in the casket and said they still got Nikes. Yeah. All right. Our frequent flow line is up and alive, and we got an international request this time, Dr. Paul. I'm not going to say the country. I'm not going to say the person. But this person wrote us and told us that he's being bullied at his gym. And he said it started when he passed by a group of guys who talked different than him and weren't the same type of people as he was. And he said he ignored them because he didn't want to get involved and he didn't want to bother them. He was just trying to be polite. Well, whatever happened, they started bullying him and they've made his life miserable. So Dr. Paul, he wants to know what he should do. Well, bullying is a terrible thing. But and this is not for children, this is for this guy especially. Sometimes you got to look within yourself. First of all, anybody bullying you, and you did say you had a fight with somebody in the gym or something. Okay, fighting's over, touching's over. We can't do that anymore. And truly, if they're bullying you too much, find a new gym. And maybe that's God's way of telling you to change exercises. But I believe that people need to start looking within themselves and seeing why people are reacting to them the way they do. And if it's continuous, if you continuously can't find friends, if you continuously are getting bullied, maybe it's time to look in the mirror and check out yourself. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that it is. See, me, I've grown to an age where I blame myself for everything. And you know why? Because then I have control. As soon as I blame it on you, I lose control. And I don't want to lose control of my life. So everything that happens to me, I blame myself so I can do something about it. What do you think about bullying? And what do you think my man should do, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, well, bullying is obviously bad, but it sounds like, an adult, not in a work situation where you've got a boss.
This is not children. This is adults.
As an adult, I think okay, he's being bullied at a gym. What kind of gym is this? What do you do? Because the thing that kind of got my attention, he said, I didn't deal with them because they spoke differently than me. What does that mean? Is it a different language? Didn't understand? Or it's say something bad? I'm not sure what that means. So it sounds like that the guy that wrote us has some internal problems, yeah, obviously go to a different gym. If you're fighting people in the gym is not a good idea.
Fighting period.
I've seen some fighting period, but I've seen some videos of folks going crazy. I don't know. It's always this post-pandemic behavior. These are two big grown men, not young, looked like middle-aged people, 40s, 50s, battling over something. And it's like 10 people pulling them apart. There's in something that I see in this society and perhaps others even overseas, is that there's a tremendous immaturity that's crept into the minds of a lot of people who should be old enough to know better. That's a phrase out here. Aren't you old enough to know better? Shouldn't you know better by now? That kind of thing. And I see some of these videos that pop up, and I'm thinking the same thing. You see them on airplanes all the time. People flipping out. There's a lot of mental illness out there too. And this may be the case here. There's a lot of mental illnesses, undisclosed, undetected, untreated. So,
in the gym, there's a lot of testosterone running around there. And there were some people who were taking a little extra testosterone. So that's not a good place to argue and fight. There are a lot of very high, popped up people ready to work out.
That's true.
And I think a lot of it has to do with ego. First of all, everybody thinks there's this big scoreboard in the sky that every time they're right or wrong, they get a mark for it. And it's not true. People will die because of their ego, because you stepped on their shoe or you crossed them without saying, excuse me. This is ridiculous. But being bullied by people is just not acceptable. And you do not put your hands on people anymore.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a sign you need to change your behavior and or go to another gym.
And one other thing, he said they were different. To me, I enjoy different. I would go up to them and say, hey, where you guys from? What language are you speaking? Tell me some cool stuff. My name is Drew Brown, man. I come from New York City and Brooklyn. Now I live here. Boom, boom, bang, bang. Because I love different people. You always find out. If you always see the same people, the same things, talk about the same shit all the time, that's all you're going to have. Expand your mind. The world, the book with 1,000 pages, start reading them.
Right. Again, that's one of the benefits of travel. Going to the top destinations you just talked about a few minutes ago. Go somewhere, see something different.
Well, this show is all about wingmen. That means watching somebody's back, Dr. Paul. And I think you have a couple of wingmen that watched a couple of people's back, and I think they're from down under. You want to give us our wingmen this week?
Yeah, it's these wingmen are wing persons, wing women. There's a couple of young ladies, Elise Partridge and Bella Broadley of Australia, an area called Ballina. It's north of Sydney. It's about 200 miles north of Sydney, Australia. And one day they were, I guess, enjoying a picnic at the beach, and this lady runs up to them and says that, help, my girls are drowning and I can't swim. Not good. So they leave their little picnic, pop up, and both young ladies go rush into the surf with something called an esky lid, which is the top of like a cooler. And they use that as a boogie board to go out to the girls and get them. And the girls were trying, I guess they were out in sea, and they got kind of swept away. They went out a little too far.
That tide.
The tide was going out, and it was getting dark. And they were able to rescue them, even though they got banged up on the rocks. I think Elise had some experience as a lifeguard, and the other lady, Bella, was on a swim team. So they're familiar with the water. And they got these girls back. They were banged up on the rocks pretty good, but she said it was getting dark, and the girls were getting exhausted and tired, can barely keep their heads above water. And they were rescued. They saved both of them, and both Elise and Bella were given awards, given bravery awards, and making public service announcements to people to, be careful when you're at the beach. Be careful and not get swept out to sea, because there's a good number of drownings in Australia, over a period of a year. Typically, it's 50 or more, because they have
Well,
some pretty
we talked
strong
about the
tides.
weather getting bad. And
Yeah.
when the weather is different, the tides are different. And the toe, the undertow is different. And I was at my friend's house, the Rappaports, with Danny, one of my childhood friends, and Evelyn, and I went swimming out there, and I thought I was Mr. Breaststroke and everything. I jumped into the ocean, and I got pulled out, and it was not funny, and I could not get back. And I was seconds away from somebody going in there and getting me, and it was not a fun experience. The toe in an ocean is extremely strong, and I always thought I was stronger than it. Well, I'm not, and you're not.
You're not.
Be very careful when you're in the ocean. Please be very careful. We know more about the sky than we do about the ocean. So guess what, Dr. Paul? Whatever is beautiful, whatever is meaningful, and whatever makes you happy, Dr. Paul, and all our listeners, may you have it today and forever. And I pray for peace, Dr. Paul.
I pray for peace too. And once again, we thank all those for listening, liking, subscribing, and sharing our messages. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a like. It helps the algorithm and helps us. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, on goodwill towards all men and women.